This has been a thing, the potential marriage between the Conservatives and Reform UK.
What happens when the party that was supposed to lead Britain for a generation suddenly finds itself in third place? Keir Starmer is facing his worst nightmare as new polling puts Labour behind both the Conservatives and Reform UK. The More in Common poll shows Labour at just 21%, having lost a third of their votes since July.
When the Conservatives got the greatest bruising in something like 100 years, and Reform UK, a party that has only been around for half an hour, turned up with 5 members of Parliament.
Meanwhile, Nigel Farage's Reform UK has surged to 25%, creating a potential right-wing alliance that could reshape British politics. Stay with me as I explain what this means for Starmer's future and the country's direction. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
There were already some Conservatives that legged it over the fence to join Reform, but it really developed legs, if you like, from July the 4th last year.
Labour's initial confidence after the July election has evaporated faster than morning dew on a summer's day. Keir Starmer's safety-first approach, once hailed as tactical brilliance, has transformed into what political analysts are now calling a fatal miscalculation. The strategy of simply waiting for Conservative implosion while avoiding policy commitments is backfiring spectacularly, creating a perception vacuum that's rapidly being filled by more decisive political forces. What's particularly damning is how Labour's recent spring statement, intended as a moment of renewal, has instead deepened voter disillusionment. Rather than offering clarity and vision, it appears to have reinforced public perception that Starmer lacks substantive direction. The More in Common poll numbers tell a devastating story. Labour has not only lost its commanding lead, but has fallen to third place, trailing both the resurgent Conservatives and a surging Reform UK. Perhaps most concerning for Labour strategists should be their hemorrhaging support among working-class voters. Traditionally the party's core constituency, these communities, once Labour strongholds, increasingly view Starmer's leadership as disconnected from their everyday concerns. The perception of abandonment runs deep, with many former supporters unable to articulate what Labour actually stands for anymore. The elephant in the room appears to be Labour's approach to inheritance tax. While Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves has avoided explicit statements, the direction seems clear. Speculation about implementing progressive bans reaching as high as 50% for larger estates has created anxiety among voters concerned about family wealth. When Reeves previously advocated for taxing the receipt of any gifts throughout a lifetime, back in 2018, few paid attention. Now these statements are returning to haunt Labour's electoral prospects. Current gifting allowances could be on the chopping block too, potentially replaced with a restrictive annual allowance of just £10,000. This seemingly technocratic policy shift carries enormous emotional weight for voters concerned about passing on their life's work to their children, precisely the kind of issue that can drive dramatic electoral swings. The Resolution Foundation's proposals, with their close ties to Labour thinking, suggest scrapping the £175,000 residence allowance, further indication that inheritance policies may be alienating precisely the aspirational voters Starmer needs to maintain power. Combined with Starmer's pledge not to raise taxes on working people, the focus on inherited wealth creates a perception that Labour is targeting family assets rather than solving structural economic problems. What we're witnessing isn't merely a polling blip. It's potentially the beginning of a fundamental political realignment. Labour's cautious centrism has created an ideological vacuum that Reform UK has enthusiastically filled with direct, unambiguous messaging that resonates with disaffected voters. The political vacuum created by Labour's cautious approach isn't just rearranging voter preferences, it's potentially rewriting the fundamental power structure of British governance. Electoral calculus now projects a scenario that would have seemed absurd just months ago. Conservatives securing 223 seats with Reform UK capturing an astonishing 170, creating the mathematical foundation for Britain's most consequential coalition government in generations. This combined force would command 393 seats, far exceeding the 326 threshold needed for a parliamentary majority. The implications are staggering. Nigel Farage, once dismissed as a political irritant, operating from the fringes, now stands at the precipice of extraordinary influence. From Brexit campaigner to potential kingmaker, his transformation represents the culmination of a decade-long strategy to reshape Britain's political landscape from the outside in. What makes this potential alliance particularly potent is the natural policy alignment between Farage and Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch. Both share hardline positions on immigration control, further EU divergence, and a commitment to economic deregulation. This ideological compatibility provides fertile ground for formal cooperation, but evidence suggests informal alignment is already underway. Conservative MPs increasingly echo reform talking points on migration and sovereignty, signaling a rightward shift in anticipation of future partnership. History offers limited but instructive precedent. The 2010 Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition demonstrated both the possibilities and pitfalls of power-sharing arrangements. However, a con-reform alliance would represent something fundamentally different, not a moderate compromise, but a decisive rightward transformation of governance priorities. The policy implications would be profound and far-reaching. Immigration would likely face unprecedented restriction, potentially including voluntary repatriation schemes. The UK's relationship with Europe could deteriorate further, with remaining EU agreements subject to renegotiation or abandonment. Economically, we might witness aggressive tax cutting and deregulation alongside reduced public spending, effectively implementing the Singapore-on-Thames model, long advocated by Brexit's most ardent supporters. For opposition parties, this realignment creates existential questions. How can Labour counter a unified right-wing front that now captures both establishment conservative and populist support? The center-left appears increasingly squeezed between this powerful new alignment and more progressive alternatives like the Greens and remnants of the Liberal Democrats. The data points not to a temporary polling anomaly, but to something more fundamental, a political realignment that could reshape British politics for decades. Reform UK has positioned itself as more than a protest vote. It now represents a permanent fixture in the political firmament, with the potential to dictate government policy from within, rather than pressure it from without. And so we reach the crossroads for Labour. The political earthquake we've witnessed isn't merely a temporary setback. It represents a fundamental challenge to Starmer's entire strategy. Labour now faces what analysts describe as a critical juncture, requiring an urgent decision: persist with the middle ground stance that has demonstrably failed to connect with voters, or embrace bold policies that might recapture those lost to Reform UK. The cautious approach has left Labour at risk of political irrelevance. Without dramatic reinvention and clear messaging that resonates with everyday concerns, the party may find itself permanently sidelined in this new political reality. The assumption of Labour dominance has been shattered. Welcome to uncharted territory.